In Chamkauli, a vibrant garden sits at the edge of town, overflowing with life. But while the soil is rich and the fruit is ripe, the villagers refuse to enter. The source of their terror is a cave on the garden's far side. For generations, people have reported hearing heavy, distorted voices echoing from the dark, the sounds of a jinn that warns everyone to stay away. The stakes rose when a local man named Ranja attempted to investigate the noise. He told his family he was going to uncover the secret once and for all, only to be found dead outside his house the very next morning. While the town mourned and retreated further into their homes, Rima looked at the garden and saw a mystery that didn't add up. Ignoring the warnings of her neighbors, she crossed the line of the garden and walked directly into the cave's shadow. A community can become trapped by its own superstitions. When an entire village agrees to stop asking questions, they leave a vacuum that only a logical investigation can fill. Rima navigated the perimeter, passing a group of thieves and a strange old woman who warned her that the jinn would show no mercy. She pushed forward until she reached the back of the cavern. Inside, she encountered a massive, shifting shadow. But it didn't attack. Instead, the voice begged for help, explaining that it was a spirit named Janad, and he had been held captive in this cell for 100 years. Janad explained the nature of his cage through a specific magical trade. This diagram shows the logic of the symbiotic trap. Energy is drawn from a glowing fruit and funneled into a human host, which simultaneously creates a physical containment barrier around the spirit. The human host was the old woman from the garden. She had used the fruit to steal Janad's longevity for herself, effectively turning him into a battery to power her immortality and keep the village away with his projected shadow. This also clarified what happened to Ranja. He hadn't been killed by a monster, but by the old woman. She had murdered him to prevent anyone from discovering the source of her stolen youth. A centuries-old spirit had become the captive of a neighbor who was simply willing to kill to keep her monopoly on the garden. To break the cycle, Rima had to find the physical anchor of the spell. She located the old woman's hut and searched through piles of ordinary produce until she spotted the one thing that didn't belong, a singular, radiant red fruit. While the old woman slept, Rima grabbed the fruit. The moment the connection was severed, the magical feedback alerted the host. Rima sprinted back toward the cave with the woman in close pursuit. The stability of the old woman's life force depended entirely on getting that fruit back. As Rima reached the cave, she tripped, and the fruit hit the ground. It immediately transformed into a parrot, a magical failsafe that signaled the complete collapse of the original binding spell. Without the fruit's energy to sustain her, a century of aging hit the old woman in seconds. She dissolved into glowing embers before she could take another step. A system built entirely on hoarding a single resource cannot survive the moment that resource is disrupted. The old woman was gone, but Janad was still behind a locked door. The parrot flew into the depths of the cave, signaling for Rima to follow. She was presented with two paths, one leading back to the sunlit garden, and another leading deeper into the pitch-black tunnels. Remembering that the jinn was still trapped below, she turned away from the light and walked into the dark. In the final chamber, 4 keys of different colors hovered in the air. This visualization shows the stakes. She could only pick one. A single mistake would cause the keys to vanish, leaving the door sealed forever. Rima looked for a pattern in the magic she had seen. The fruit was red. The parrot was red. She followed that thread of evidence and reached for the red key. By connecting her past observations to the challenge at hand, Rima was able to bypass the final security measure that had kept Janad captive for decades. As the red key turned, a massive window at the deck of the cave swung open. Sunlight flooded the interior, and Janad finally stepped out of the containment field. To show his gratitude, the jinn offered Rima anything she desired. He gave her the same opportunity to claim absolute power that the old woman had used a century ago. Rima didn't ask for youth or wealth. She simply asked that the garden remain in bloom forever, so the people of the village could finally share it without fear. Janad granted the wish and departed. Rima returned to Chamkauli to tell the story, revealing the truth about Ranja's death and proving the garden was finally safe. Fear and greed create walls that can last for generations, But those walls are often held up by nothing more than a lack of information and a person willing to exploit it. When someone brings logic and courage into the dark, those barriers begin to crumble.